This week on Dig Me Out. With your hosts, Jason Zia and Tim Minichi.
Jay, we're back again with another episode thanks to our Dig Me Out Union on Patreon. You can help us make the next episode happen by joining us at dmounion.com or digmeoutunion.com. Jay, this episode is brought to us by the Union, as in a union member who is not with us for this episode, but he has been with us.
He has.
For a number of previous episodes. And I should probably have listed all of his episodes or looked them up before.
Let me get him for you.
I got
all
it.
Right.
What do you got?
We got albums of 93, music we're thankful for. Mm-hmm. His last pick was Gun Swagger.
Okay, that was an interesting one.
I'll just do his picks. The Wild Hearts, PHUQ.
Mm-hmm.
Gin Blossoms.
That was the Sophomore Slump Revisited.
Sophomore
yes.
Slump. He didn't pick that.
He did not pick Nirvana.
He picked Big Chief.
Yes.
Mac Avenue Skull Game. And his first pick was Thornetta Davis.
And that's Sunday all Phil Fleming. Music. Phil was supposed to be here.
So there's a bit of a theme there. Can you pick up on a theme? There's like
there's some rock.
Some edgy melodic rock, and there's some soulful stuff.
Right. The first two are definitely more on the soulful end.
Yeah.
And then you got the Wild Hearts and Gun are definitely the rock end.
Yeah.
So this one was clearly going to be either in the rock camp or the soul camp. No.
Nope.
It's not.
Curveball. A big curveball for us.
There are a lot of curveballs on this record. Did you get into this record at all in terms of the curveballs? Or did you just listen to it and that's it?
I just listened to it. I don't know what you mean. Get into it.
There's a lot of interesting stuff about this record. So we're talking about the 1997 album, October 1997 album by one Kylie Minogue. This is Impossible Princess, which was briefly retitled Kylie Minogue as in self-titled in Europe because do you remember what happened in 1997 with a particular princess, Jay?
Princess Diana passed away. Okay.
Yes. So they changed it in Europe because of that. Sort of like how Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American was changed to just Jimmy Eat World because that came out right before 9/11.
Okay.
So this is her sixth studio album. Probably people are going to know Kylie Minogue, if you were around in the 80s, from the Loco-Motion or some of the other pop singles that she had. She was an Australian soap opera actress, actually, and she became a pop star. She was on the soap opera Neighbours and then started, with music, a couple of big UK and Australian singles that got some play. And then she ended up leaving. She was with like a pop label and she wanted to do some stuff. I don't know if you remember this, and this is going to play into this whole record thing. The Manic Street Preachers, when they released their first album, Generation Terrorists, there's a song called Little Baby Nothing, which Tracy Lords duets on. They originally approached Kylie Minogue to do it, and her label said no. She was okay with it. And I think that was like one of the minor issues that started creeping up with her wanting to do something else because she didn't want to be just a pure pop star.
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up signing to a different label. I think it was called Deconstruction. And that's where her fifth album, which was also self-titled, comes into play. That came out in September 94. And it was like they made a very big deal about it no longer being a pop album. Like she was moving in a different direction. She was working with different producers. She was starting to do her own songwriting, which she had not really been allowed to do at that point. And so it was her stepping out on her own and saying, I'm an artist and whatnot. So for this record, now I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know how big of a Nick Cave fan you are, but Nick Cave put out the album Murder Ballads in 1996. She sings on the single Where the Wild Roses Grow. That was her like breaking out from the mold of like being a pop star again. Right. She wanted to work with more interesting artists. He ended up giving her a book by, I'm trying to remember the name of it, Billy, what was his name? Billy Childish. He wrote a book called Poems to the Broken Hearts of Impossible Princesses that was published in 1984. And Nick Cave gave her that book, and that's where she got the title from the album. So he actually wrote a song for the record that didn't end up getting put on the record. It was just, they did a demo, but it didn't end up making this record. She wanted to work with a lot of different people. The producers came back from the previous record, but she also worked with Dave Ball, who was in Soft Cell, and some other folks that we'll get into. So this came out in 97. It did pretty well in Australia. The UK press hated it to the point where they actually banned the record from being played on the radio because they thought it was such an embarrassingly bad radio album.
Who banned it? Who's they?
It's, let me see. It's let's see. Public reaction. I read it in the Wikipedia article. The NME said that Kylie Minogue is a total fraud for introducing new musical genres to her work. They gave it a 4 out of 10. Q Magazine gave it a 2 out of 5, which is the other big British publication. Where is the thing about her? Oh yeah, here. A year after its release, UK Virgin Radio mocked the album's sales, stating, "We've done something to improve Kylie's records. We've banned them." So like there was hatred for this record by the UK press. I mean, this is at the height of the press's power in the UK, right? Though, because this is Britpop. And
I guess, my goodness, the UK press is very
vicious.
Jeez, calm down. It's just music, man.
It's crazy.
Imagine if anybody in America took music this seriously.
And it's not even that it was like there was something offensive on the record. Like there's not like a song about like the Iraq war where she's like, I'm pro Saddam.
Right.
Like, like it's just because she decided to do something different. And she on this record, she has solo writing credits on several songs and then co-writing credits on a number of the songs. And a couple of the songs was, when I was looking up the writing of it, she would write lyrics and then she would work with the producer, and the producer would then take it and say, let's try these lyrics. And so they would just constantly be bouncing lyrics back and forth. And she actually lived with the producers for like a number of months, and she would wake up every morning with a new set of lyrics, and they would say, we like this, this, and this, go back. And she would just constantly be rewriting lyrics over and over again. So she did a ton of work. Like, I think the perception of pop stars is that they don't really do anything. They just show up and sing. Maybe they get a co-writing credit if they like contribute a line here and there. But she was like very actively involved in every aspect of this record. And this was re-released in, I think, 2003 with bonus discs. There's obviously, because this is a pop record, there's always remixes and single remixes, dance remixes. So there's like a whole album of every track is remixed. Plus there were a couple of B-side tracks that were collected. And then after this, I don't know how big of a Kylie Minogue fan you are, Jay.
I'm not.
You're not a big fan?
I was only familiar with her name.
So in 2000 is the next album, which is Body Language. I'm trying to find her discography so I can make sure that I actually get this all correct. So in 2003, she releases Body Language. That was on Parlophone. And then in 2007, she releases X. I mean, all these albums are now selling like 1 million. Body Language did 1.5 million. I left off Fever. Fever is the one I wanted to get to. So Fever, which came out in 2001, has the single Can't Get You Out of My Head, which I think is one of the best singles of all time. You might know that from the la 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 la. Like, it's just a great earworm.
Okay.
That song was written by Kathy Dennis, which Kathy Dennis, Come On and Get My Love. She had a big single with that. I don't know if you remember that song. And she worked with a lot of different folks on that record as well. Oh, there was the Light Years album as well. But it was Fever that took off. Like, that was the one that exploded, sold 6 million worldwide. Light Years did not do as well following after, or it did better, but it didn't hit 1 million. So let's get to some comments on this record from our patrons. We'll get to the poll at the end of the show. Willie Dixon said, I was looking forward to checking this out, but to be honest, it didn't have enough of an edge for me. It was a little too light too much of the time. Maybe I'd find more to like after more than one listen. As it is, it's a better EP. Gavin said, well, this is a left field choice for the pod. No one has suggested left field. But I'm intrigued to hear the review. I've gone EP as it's not for me, but the whole genre of dance pop. But that's the whole genre of dance pop. I'm going to skip Darren's comment for a sec. Ian McIver said, there are some decent musical ideas on the album restricted by the pop song format and sadly Kylie's vocals and lyrics. Still a sign of things to come for her own success in the 2000s. Better EP. Patrick Testa, wow, this is definitely a head turner. There are a couple of clunkers, and I don't feel like this represents Kylie's best vocals, but I do think her voice and the music go so well together. It really feels like a band performance. There's also a lot of really cool, unique rock-like approaches to the songs. I love the blending of instrumentation. If you make it through, talking to you, Willie, and others, the album pays off. On the last 4 songs are some of the best. Kyle Bittner said, this was fine. It didn't really bother me one way or another. I put it on, I played it, and moved on. There were a couple of songs that made me peak to see the name Breathe and Some Kind of Bliss, but in the end, I found it a bit forgettable. Better EP. And then Darren Leach said, did you read any of the comments, by the way, on Patreon for the album?
I scanned them.
Okay. Do you happen to catch Darren's comment?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. He said her shift away from pop to record an indie album, because her nickname at this time was Indie Kylie, because she left her big pop label.
Okay.
With help from the Manic Street Preachers. So they're involved in making this record. I don't know if you picked up on that listening to this.
I didn't need to read the comments to figure that out.
Okay.
We'll get into that in my feedback.
Okay. So we've established you're not like a big Kylie. You're not a Kylie head.
No, I mean, I had no opinion one way or another. I just remember she was like a pop artist that would come up in conversations when you'd be talking to, like, I don't know, people that were knowledgeable and passionate about music and or rock music. Like, it was unique that she was one of those artists that came up in those conversations. That's really all I knew about her. I might know some of the songs you mentioned, but I wouldn't know that they were her.
Got it. Well, let's get into this record, Jay. Tell me one thing you liked about Impossible Princess by Kylie Minogue.
There's 2 modes of songs on this record that I think work well. First one, and I think what both of them are doing is the production is really matching what her voice can bring to the songs. So one example, or one mode, let's say, is using strings and piano to create this like suspenseful, dramatic, intrigue-filled, kind of sultry sound. So I'm thinking of Too Far is a good example. The first song on the album, and Dreams is another great example. The last song on the album. They have this cinematic feel, and it lets her voice, which is kind of delicate and a little girly sounding, like sounds young and it's kind of high. It brings to it this weight by having this dramatic string production and pianos that have some space in them, and they really complement the vocal well in that they're either like enhancing the melody or they're responding to it. Dreams is a good example where there's all this space and atmospherics, and as she's singing, like the strings are almost responding to her vocal, which I think works really well.
To have every man, but to love only one. To wake with the moon and sleep with the sun. To be a sinner and saint, a lover and friend. To know a beginning, but never an end. To fly in the ocean, to swim in the skies. Believer in truth, defendant of lies. To know the purest love, the deepest pain. To be lost and found again and again and again.
Somebody in the Discord, I think, said it sounds like it could be in a Bond film.
Yeah. Yes. I would 100% agree with that sentiment. So in that mode, I think it's really cool. It's also kind of timeless. Yeah. You think of Bond films, you think cinematic stuff. It's atmospheric. You can close your eyes and kind of imagine a, image. The other mode I like a lot is the guitar driven songs. I didn't realize when I listened to this record, I was basically going to be hearing some pretty good Manics tunes. So I picked up right away some kind of Bliss and I Don't Need Anyone. The first time I heard them, that they were either written by James Dean Bradfield or they were modeled after James Dean Bradfield, because it's so clear from the guitar parts and the melodies and how the strings are used and the production and everything. Like, it is Manic's 1997. And I think she works good in that format. I think, there's a more of a pop sheen to it. The drums have more of that punchy pop sound. But I think it fits her voice in that, she has a foot in this bright, soaring, melodic sense with the strings really enhancing that. But then there's this driving, a bit of a driving guitar and drum going on underneath the songs. I think that combination together just really complements her well. Again, I think, songs written by guitar bands, the advantage to them is that, it allows the singer to be able to do a lot. And also kind of just play to the song, right? You don't have to rely a lot on the production. If you got the guitar chords and a couple of melodic hooks in there, like, you can do quite a bit with them. And it feels good for, I think, her vocal style. She's able to kind of lean into the songs and let them be what they are, bring her flavor to it. I think the string stuff in there works well, which is something the Manics were doing a lot of the time. And I just geeked out because, I can't hear enough Lost Manic stuff. So
right.
Maybe I'll also want to hear their versions of these songs. Be fun to hear. So those were the two things that I think I responded the most to on this record and worked for me. What worked for you?
Well, I just want to backtrack for one sec. The first time I played this record, and I had never listened to this. I was sitting here at my desk, and Katie, my wife, was at the desk behind me, or at somewhere in this room, and some kind of Bliss came on, and I like turned to her, and I looked back at the screen, and I was like turning to her. I'm like, do you hear this? I'm like, she ripped off the Manic Street Preachers. Like, this sounds like the Manic Street Preachers. And then I went to the Wikipedia page and I was like, son of a bitch. They co-wrote this song.
Yeah,
James Dean Bradfield and Sean Moore, the drummer, have co-write credits. And it's produced by Dave Aringa, who produced Everything Must Go. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, what magic is in their sauce? I can hear one verse and chorus and pick out that it's a Manic Street Preachers song. And I looked it up. It's just like A minor, C, F, C, A minor, C. The only thing that they do is in the chorus. He uses a weird it's like FC FC, which are again very basic chords, and then he uses an A flat and then to a G in that like last part of the chorus where it changes a bit. I'm like, that's such a Manic Street Preachers thing to do. Like change that you have 3 progressions of 1 chord progression, and then the last chord progression changes. And I could totally hear James D. Bradfield's vocal throughout this, which was then I was like, oh, this is cool. Like she is playing around with genres. And I also picked up on that with the other song that they co-wrote, which is I Don't Need Anyone. That one was Nikki Wire and James Dean Bradfield working together.
That intro, as soon as you hear it, the exchange between how the guitar chords are played and the string counter melody, instantly, I was like, boom, this is Manic's.
Yep.
But I was like you, I assumed like she was working with some producers that were basically ripping them off. Like, hey, we're going to write a rock song. They were big at the time in the UK. Let's write a song like the Manics. And then the same thing as you, I went and looked at the song credits. I was like, you got to be shitting me. They actually wrote the song.
And I imagine it was probably pretty, like, there must have been some sort of, I don't know, like kismet there that they wanted her for the first record and couldn't get her, and now now she's bringing them in to actually sing or to co-write songs with her. That had to be pretty cool for them. I thought at some point maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't until they did like live stuff. I thought that she did end up working with them. I know that, they've obviously worked with a lot of different singers. Mark Lanigan was on the last record. Nina, what's her name from?
Nina Pearson.
Pearson. That's. Yep. I was going to say the other Nina from
Strauss. Oh.
Nina Peebles.
Gotcha.
of the Peebles family. I thought they had recorded a song with her on one of the last 2 records, but it was not. It was The Secret He Had Missed was Julia Cumming, and then on Resistance is Futile it was The Anchoress was on Dylan and Caitlin. I don't know why I thought she had been on there. She should. I mean, based on this pairing on this record, just these 2 songs, I would love to hear an album of them. I would love to hear her and James Dean Bradfield singing together for like a whole record. Just do a duets record. That would be fantastic. But beyond those 2 songs, I do think there's some interesting stuff on this record. Patrick mentioned it. I do like the trip hop that's kind of happening on Through the Years and Love Takes Over Me at the end of the record. The last song has a very, like, if people were into Ruby, that was a trip hop artist that I really liked. She had singles like Tiny Meat and Paraffin. But they, it's got that mid 90s, late 90s trip hop vibe of Portishead and Morcheeba and Hooverphonic and those. And then you get, there's some really, there are songs that I don't love the whole song, but they have really interesting parts. So like Too Far, I don't love her vocal for that song, but I really like the stuttering breakbeat drums, the string interludes that happen.
Yep.
Those are really cool. On Cowboy Style, which is, it's very electronica. I mean, you could have heard that on probably like a Chemical Brothers album, but there's some she included some like Celtic elements that are interesting, and then also there's some like cool tribal drumming towards the end of that song. uh there's a lot of interesting parts, and her vocal is constantly evolving. Like sometimes she's doing a breathy thing, sometimes she's very aggressive, almost like rapping on some of these songs. Mostly she's in, pop singer mode, but I do find it real interesting how much she pushed herself and the music to do different things when she could have just sat back and just made pop records and just like, worked with big producers and songwriters and not had to worry about any of this, but that she wanted to do something more adventurous. Does it all work? We can get into that, but there are definitely some like really standout songs that have great hooks. I mean, they have to. It's a pop album.
Yeah.
They got to work on the hooks. Note, Some Kind of Bliss was the lead single off this. They made a video for it, and I guess that was part of the problem with the UK press, is they were like, oh, she's just using the Manics to make a rock album, and then the rest of the album isn't completely rock, and they're like, this doesn't sound like the single.
Yeah, I could see that.
So there was just a lot of bad publicity in the UK around this record. But yeah, that's what worked for me. It's kind of in the same ballpark as you. I mean, I think that there are like half the record is like really, really strong. As far as what doesn't work, what do you say?
Look, I'm not a huge fan of her voice. I don't dislike it. I just don't hear anything remarkable. So it really comes down to the songs to me for this record to work. If the songs play with, allow her voice to, work well within them, and the production is well suited to the song and also helping her vocal, then I think it's working. The songs that are heavier on the production side, maybe more experimental, I struggle with. While I agree with you, so let's just talk about Cowboy Style. I like some of the ideas in Cowboy Style. As a song, I find it a bit schizophrenic. Like, it starts off with almost like, oh, it's going to go in this kind of, electro western kind of vibe, but then it brings in this really like heavy plucky key thing over top that feels Eastern.
Well, that's the Celtic.
Yeah, or Celtic, like it, and then it just gets kind of muddled, and it's very like overall busy and distracting from like, well, what is the song and what is the vocal doing? And
right,
I think at times that's a good example where I think it gets a bit over ambitious. There's some other stuff on here like Breathe that gets mid-tempo-y and uses a lot of like keyboard looping and blipping and blooping stuff that's just like atmosphere and nuance, and not really, again, like it's a pop song. Like what's the hook here? What's the melody? What's the point of this? So there's a couple examples. Something like Limbo, to me, the beginning of that sounds exactly like that song "Ready to Go" by Republica.
Exact same note.
To the point where, like, when that started, I was like, "Oh, I didn't know she did this song." And then as the song goes, I'm like, "Oh, this isn't the song; it's a different song." But wait a minute, what the? And I had to look it all up, and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, okay." So I don't know, some of this genre stuff, I get the ambition. It's just, it feels like trying on a different outfit or suit or something and not really owning it. Not really like delivering on the songs all the time. Through the Years is another example of like, okay, this is like a Portishead vibe, but not quite as interesting as Portishead. So yeah, I'm gravitating more towards, you know, the tracks that they're either focused more on like the vocal and what the vocal's delivering from a melodic standpoint, or the song, and less on the songs that are about like mid 90s pop and dance music production, which to me just muddles and distracts me from like, what's the hook here?
Right.
What didn't work for you?
Same thing about some of these songs where like Limbo being basically Republica's Ready to Go. There are also, I just feel like some generic sound, like Drunk sounds like it's off of like a trance compilation from like 1998. Like it's completely indiscernible from like any other trance song that was happening in the 90s. And there's some just lyrical choice, not lyrical choices, but cadence and delivery choices that I don't love. The attempts at rapping, I did not care for that. I feel like when she is belting it out real big, like that's when her voice kind of is the most interesting. Sometimes when she gets in, like it's very intimate, like on Dreams in the verses with that, you know, you're just getting that string thing happening and that's it. I like that. I just feel like maybe there was almost too much experimentation. Like there needed to be, and that might be from working with multiple producers. You don't have like a cohesion. I mean, I'm sure she's thinking about the overall, but you know, was she getting input on the overall from anyone else outside of like, I don't know, somebody with the label or something like that?
It feels like an independent record in that way. Doesn't have the mark of a production point of view.
Because when you hear like the electronica aspect happening, then it makes me think, oh, what if she had worked with the Chemical Brothers? Like, what would have that sounded like? What if they produced her album? Or, you know,
when we listen to the Manic stuff, it's like, well, what if she did a whole record with the Manics? That would, you know, what would that be like? Or, you know,
like now
like
we would say
8 examples of that on this record.
Right now we would say, hey, just do like 4 songs and put out an EP on, you know, Spotify or whatever. I understand back then that's a huge commitment.
Not gonna happen then.
It's not gonna, exactly. But I don't know. So it's kind of a schizophrenic record, I would say, in terms of style, in terms of production, and in terms of quality. There's some stuff that's very singular sounding and it's unique. And then there's things that just sound like genre exercises that are this is the trance song. This is the trip hop song. Do It Again has like kind of a lazy Britpop feel. So yeah, so I understand why the commenters on Patreon were kind of struggling with not really saying, not saying this is terrible, but not loving it, because I think that the overall isn't remarkable, but when you bore down into certain songs, you can find some gems.
The moments are fleeting that you might grab onto, and I think there's enough variety here that like all kinds of different listeners could hear things they like, but it's fleeting. It's going to quickly change to something else you're probably not going to like. And you're going to have to wait a couple songs to get back to what you liked. It feels like maybe 4 to 5 different records or ideas for different records around this to me. And I liked your idea of, had this been done now, you could do this as a series of EPs, which would have been would have worked much better creatively. It's like you fully lean into a sound, you do 2 to 5 songs that really, take a pop turn on that genre, and then you move on to the next one. And, some people like some EPs and some like others, and some are huge fans of yours and they're like, whatever you do. But yeah, cohesively as a record, I'm not sure I understand this record.
Right. And this did come out in 97. So we're talking about trip hop as a current thing. Like this isn't like 5 years after trip hop has already petered out or something. Like you're smack dab in the middle of Massive Attack and Portishead, putting out records. Same thing with the trance and electronica movements. Like 97 is where it's happening. So she was kind of on trend with those, but they just don't sound as good as those other artists. I think it would, or the other approach you could take is like every song is with a different outside group that you write with. Like one song is with the Chemical Brothers, one song with the Manic Street Preachers, do one song with Massive Attack, do, like that, like just track by track going through, hitting different genres and different sounds. And, what would her and Liam Gallagher sound like together? Or Damon Albarn doing a Britpop track. Ronnie Size, like she basically does some breakbeat that's very similar to Ronnie Size. So why not just work with Ronnie Size? So on our overall ratings, Jay, I'll share our Patron results in a moment, but where do you land on this?
I'm gonna go with an EP. It's almost 2 singles with A sides and B sides. I'm gonna go. I like Too Far in Dreams. I think those 2 songs go really great together and make a cool like little EP or single A B side. And I think Some Kind of Bliss, I Don't Need Anymore. And I think Did It Again fits with that well, even though it's not a Manic's written song. I think it goes well with those other 2. So I think those 3 fit together really well. So I've got about 5 songs. I'll call it an EP. Maybe you do, sequence them, the 3 rock songs together, and then sort of the 3 more orchestral, cinematic songs together. How about you?
I would go, I agree with you that it's kind of like a double 7-inch or something like that. Some Kind of Bliss and I Don't Need Anyone go perfectly together. I know they're a little generic, but I do like her voice in the trip hop space with Through the Years and Love Takes Over Me. And then I like Dreams. I think that's interesting. And then that might be maybe Breathe. I'm trying to remember it. I didn't write anything down for Breathe. I think I forgot to write something. So I'd be at 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah. About where I'm at.
About the same. Which honestly, looking at our poll results, we're right on target. 50-50 were the album better EP. So half our listeners or our patrons listened to this and thought, this is a worthy album. So good on them for being open to it, because I don't know how a lot of people did not seem like they were going to be open to it from their comments or we're
Well,
not expecting to find anything interesting.
we're Manics fans. I mean, I'm sure there's much bigger Manics fans than us, but we're pretty knowledgeable about the band.
Not on this continent.
Neither of us knew they had any involvement with this record. So it's a fun, if you're a Manics fan and you didn't know that, it's a fun listen to at least check those songs out. And the flip side of that is, for those who made comments and like some of the stuff on this record, if you liked the stuff that was more guitar oriented and you haven't spent a lot of time with the Manics, you might want to go back and check them out, because basically they're, that's them. That's what they sound like.
Yep. Yeah. I was trying to figure out, like, at one point I was like, is this actually a Manic song that they just like repurposed for this? Because Some Kind of Bliss sounded like it could have been on like Postcards for a Young Man.
Yeah.
And then the other one,
I Don't Need Anyone,
that sounded like it could have been on like Rewind the Film.
Yeah.
And I was like,
they don't sound like, I mean, I know her name's on the credits, so I won't question her involvement with it, but to me, they don't sound like they were written necessarily for this record or for another person. They just sound like Manic songs.
oh, well, I got the impression from reading that, at least for Some Kind of Bliss, James Dean Bradfield and her sat down in a room together with a guitar, and he just strummed the song on acoustic guitar, which, if you look at those chords, you go, yeah, those are easy chords, major, minor chords to play on an acoustic. He worked on the melody, like humming the melody, and she was singing lyrics.
It's wild how seemingly simple that stuff is, and it just sounds like him, man.
I would love to talk to someone who can dissect like the actual like key and like what he's doing musically, because there is a distinct aspect to hit the way that James D. Bradfield's voice interacts with their chord progressions and I don't know what he's doing, but I'm sure somebody who knows about music much smarter than me would be able to tell me what that is. So 50-50, we're the album better EP. Phil, we hope that everything's okay, and we'd like to get your feedback on this.
We're gonna assume Phil thought it was a worthy album, but
yeah,
if we're wrong, you'll have to go to Discord and find out, and he'll correct us.
But I have to imagine that he picked this because of that Manics like he knows, he knows us.
Yeah,
he knows like, because this is I gotta admit, this is a great entry point into all of this other stuff. Like, oh, we're not going to do a pop album. Well, how about this pop album that has the Manic Street Preachers on it? Like, God damn it, that's the little hook that got us in there. And now we're talking about Kylie Minogue, which, if you had told us 13 years ago that we'd be doing an episode on Kylie Minogue, we would have been like, is there a different Kylie Minogue that we don't know of? Or was there a punk band named Kylie Minogue that spelled it with like a bunch of Y's?
Kylie Minogue.
Kylie Minogue. Kylie's sister, Kelly. So we need to thank Phil for suggesting this record. And if you would like to join the union and suggest a record like Phil or all of our patrons do we have any of those left, Jay? I know we just had I forgot to mention at the top of the show, but we just had Mr. I think it's Matt Staup, Staup.
Yep.
He just joined us at the suggested album level.
Yep. Board of directors.
He joined our board of directors.
He'll be stepping in and making a pick.
Making a pick. He gets to vote in our monthly tournament polls. He gets to vote in picking our 80s, our aughts episodes, which we need to record that sometime soon. And then also gets a t-shirt, right? Don't you get a t-shirt at that level?
Yeah, you do.
See, we clothe you. We give you nourishment for your ears, and we put clothes on your back.
Get a exclusive DMO board of directors shirt.
Yep. And sticker. Can't forget the sticker. It's the that's the biggest.
Put that on your Put that on your laptop.
Put it on your laptop, or if you have a plastic lunchbox that you take into work.
What were those called? The metal ones that we had as kids.
Thermos? Or are you talking about like a brand?
They were like metal, and they would have like cartoon. You could buy them. They were like themed cartoon characters. Or
I had a Dukes of Hazzard one.
Yeah. Was there a name for those? They had a thermos in them.
I just called them a lunchbox, but
yeah,
I don't remember like what company made them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was like an A-Team one. I mean, there was like Star Wars and Knight Rider. Like there was always all sorts of cool ones. And then there were also plastic ones that you could there would be like, different things on there, like Pac-Man or something like that.
The Dukes of Hazzard one.
Yeah.
Guess how much that goes for now?
$80.
If you've got the thermos, which had a giant Confederate flag on it. It's just a thermos seriously, it's a thermos with a giant Confederate flag on it that says Dukes of Hazzard.
That's what I probably took to third grade Catholic school in Buffalo, New York in the 80s.
Right. Totally normal. Yep. I so remember. I may have had this. I remember it so vividly. Guess how much it costs now?
I said 80.
180.
180. And I assume that's not rusted and no dents and stuff like that.
It's in pretty view shape.
Oh, okay.
It's in good shape, but it's not like, in the box and everything.
Right. Well,
that plastic thermos with the flip up lid. Oh my God, this is taking me back.
I don't know if I got, I don't want to pull it out, but I got a Pac-Man cup from a used secondhand store. But it has two layers. So like there's a clear outside, and then there's almost like a little like toy Pac-Man thing happening inside the cup.
Yep.
It wasn't a ton of money, but it was just like, I'm pretty sure I got that from like a Pizza Hut or something. Like there was some giveaway where they were like giving those, like Burger King, for when Pac-Man was happening or something like that. I was like, I have to buy it. I have to put it back in my house. That and some Atari cartridges, which I don't have an Atari, but I was like, cartridges for $2? Okay. I'll turn them into artwork. Anyway, this is the kind of stuff we chat about over at the Discord, which you get when you join us at Patreon. All sorts of fun topics. Every day, people are talking about new releases. There's just a new release from Blur was announced. New album from Blur coming soon.
Did we know that was coming?
No, it was totally out of the blue.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And we talk about rock and roll podcasts besides ourselves. We talk about rock docs and audio gear and all kinds of reissues that are happening. So Patreon, that's how you get to the Discord. It's also where you can read the Box newsletter, which you can sign up for at digmeoutpodcast.com. The Box newsletter comes out every week with a calendar of new releases and 2 reviews of new albums, books, movies, documentaries, TV shows about 80s, 90s, and aughts music. And digmeoutpodcast.com is also where you go to suggest an album for our monthly polls. 27 albums enter the poll, 1 album leaves. You can suggest your album and leave a comment about why you're suggesting it, and we will include that in your episode, so we don't have to use AI generated content to fill the gaps.
We use both to fill the gaps.
This podcast is actually AI generated. So, this is what AI thinks 2 middle-aged white guys would be talking about.
Make your pitch, try to convince people to pick your record, but I also augment it with some information to try to help people understand who the hell some of these artists are, because every week it's like, I would say 7 of the 9, maybe 6 of the 9. I have no idea who these people are.
Yeah, same.
So,
a lot of the names are completely unknown.
When we put them up, it's a little bit of chance for people, if they don't end up winning, at least know who they are and maybe give them a listen. So,
and lastly, Apple Podcasts is where you go to leave some positive feedback for this program. So for Jay, I'm Tim. We'll be out.
Wait, Bah,
We'll be out.
what?
We be out. No, what did I have?
We'll be back again, or we're out?
We'll be back again next week with another episode of Dig Me Out.
Did you just have a stroke?
I did kind of stroke out there for a sec.
Weeb about bubble doo bop.